On today's show.
That's all I've got to say.
Oh dear. This is KRZD, the podcast where music and perspectives collide.
I'm Anne, a music lover who's the ultimate fan.
And I'm Kelly, a professional musician. Join us as we dive into the world of the Rose and other Korean and Asian rock bands.
Sometimes we'll agree, sometimes we'll wildly disagree, but what's guaranteed is a passionate, hilarious, and unfiltered conversation about the music that unites us and the bands that inspire us. Hey everybody, we're back for a special episode of KRZD called Into the Cut. And today we are hosting, Kelly and I, a roundtable discussion on the Rose's documentary film, The Rose Come Back to Me. I'm so excited, Kelly. This film finally made its theatrical debut the weekend of February 14th. And we know now that thousands of fans and other people have seen the film and they are just dying to talk about it. So that's always what it is, right? You go see a movie and like the first thing you want to do when you love this movie is just dish and just dig into it. And I think when I saw this film, I knew right away there's so much to dig into beyond the surface of this film. And I think that's what we want to do in this episode today. So Kelly, why don't you give our viewers and our listeners a little overview of the format of today's episode?
Yeah, so today we are going to discuss 4 topics to do with the actual documentary, and it's from a very diverse panel of individuals. So this could be interesting, I will warn you now. Anne and I are going to introduce each topic as we go, and then we're going to let each member of our panel just sort of share their perspectives. And I have a feeling some of these perspectives may be very similar and they may be very, very different. So I'm just going to start introducing the wonderful people that have joined us today. So we have Ashley from Real Stray Kids Nation. And you are a fan of The Rose, are you not, Ashley? Are you part of the club?
Absolutely. Yes, 1000%. I would say that they are literally my number one. 100%.
So do you want to just
you're
say
saying that
bit?
on a podcast that focuses on the Rose, so I think you're I don't know, you're playing to the hosts a little bit, I feel.
I trust and believe when I say everywhere I go, the Rose is literally the only thing that I talk about. That's the very first thing that I speak about. I promise you, I'm not just trying to get brownie points. So we had it to where we started with just with Stray Kids, and then we ended up just branching out more. And I was like, I need you guys to understand this group. I need you guys to understand who they are and what there is out there. And so I partnered up with 2 other girls, and we just have created such a huge community. And every time I turn around, there's just more Black Roses that I'm meeting. And we always are talking about the Rose. We're talking about all different K-pop groups. And it's just an amazing feeling to know that there are others that have that same feeling just like us. So our entire purpose around all of this is just to build this community up even more. We tried to sell out that entire theater. So we were out there trying to bring everybody in there because I was like, they need to see that they are loved everywhere. So
Love that, Ashley.
And of course, we have the wonderful Elpida, who I have known for a while now, and she's had the pleasure of dealing with me in person. Elpida runs the WeGoAsOne fan page. Do you want to introduce yourself, darling?
Yes, hi. I'm Elpida. I've been a fan of the Rose for 4 years now. I used to be a listener for 2 years, and then the last 2, I became a huge fan. And it's the first band that I'm fangirling for. I used to be a tour manager. I used to work in the music industry, so I wasn't used on fangirling, and I really enjoy this side of the stage. Being in front of the stage is more fun. Much more fun. And I love the Black Roses thing. It's just Black Roses. You can smell them.
I worry every now and again. You can tell I know her. Anyway, and then we also have Evelien with us as well. And Evelien Kong is from Reppin Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. Your podcast just recently on the documentaries have been amazing. Anybody who hasn't seen them, take a look at Reppin Podcast because these are really great interviews.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me, you guys. So I'm actually, my real job is I am a producer and director for television. And I've been in the business for about 27 years. And I also do a podcast called Reppin, which is short for representation, but it goes far beyond diversity and equity and inclusion because I think we as people represent a lot of things. And it's really about what you represent as a person and who people are beyond, you know, their accomplishments or their body of work or what they're known for. People are more than, you know, race, gender, equity. So the podcast is about understanding who we are as people based on character and perspective and truths that we hold. And yeah, so I stumbled upon the Rose during the Tribeca Film Festival. And that's actually where I got a chance to speak with Eugene and Diane Kwan, who's a producer who's amazing. The legendary Janet Yang. Holy crap, that was huge. And, you know, obviously James Rowe, whom I love. And they are so talented, truly incredible storytellers. And I think what was interesting for me, because I didn't know the Rose, was understanding each of their individual experiences and journeys and sort of how they are the champion for stories like this. And these are voices and documentaries that we need a lot more of.
And last but no means least, we have friend of the show and director of the documentary, Eugene Yi. Hiya, Eugene.
Hi, I'm Eugene.
I feel like you don't need an introduction anymore.
No,
all of our viewers and listeners know you so well.
But I'm here just representing the film team and just on behalf of all of us. I just really am so grateful to be in this space with you all. I feel like all the topics that we all have sort of talked about and that I think we're all connecting on are things that we want people to take away from the film. And thank you for creating the space.
Yeah, we're happy to have all of you today. So let's jump right in. So we're going to kind of kick it off. First topic is everyone's perspective on the film and the Rose. And we're going to start with Elpida and Ashley, kind of from your perspectives as Black Roses seeing the film. So kind of going into the film, Elpida, what were you expecting to see? And then how did your perspective change after seeing the film?
I must admit, I'm really envious of those who walked in without knowing the Rose or without knowing the story of the Rose. I was already familiar with pretty much everything. I didn't know the details or the size of all those things, but I was aware. I walked in prepared to cry. And I walked out the first day. I was really strong. I didn't cry. The second day, I came out sobbing. It was the same story both days. Nothing changed. But the second day, I had better company. I was with friends, with Black Roses. The first day, I was with some friends from the music industry that was interesting on learning about the Rose because they kept hearing me talking about the Rose, the Rose, the Rose. You must listen to the Rose. So they came with me. The vibe was completely different. I was very focused on just watching. The second day, I let go of myself and I couldn't stop crying, even though I knew all the stories. And I've learned the size of the situations the day before, but still, it was really hard for me.
What do you think made you react that way in the second day?
I was among Black Roses, so there was a different feeling in the entire room. The audience, the second day, it was much more Black Roses, dark Black Roses. So we all started crying. It was the feeling, the vibe. We felt connected all together. And I had someone next to me that I could cry on, and she was crying on me. So yes,
It's that level of the community and the vulnerability with it. Yeah, I could
yes,
understand that.
it's very important. I think it makes huge difference when you're with people that know about it. You can talk with them during the movie, so you get more into it. You connect more. I don't know how to explain it, but I felt more connected the second day.
So for me, I've actually only really been into the Rose and actually started really diving into them for about a year and a half, 2 years now. So for me, going in, I knew what I knew, and I knew coming out of it I was going to learn so much more. So to have this documentary come out, it was such an eye opener for myself to actually understand what they're going through, who they are as a person. Because when you see everything on TV, you only know what they show you. You don't really know the deep, like the deep end of everything of what they're going through, and until you actually experience something like this. This is a great opportunity for you to understand who they are, and that's literally what they have said. Even if you don't know, then come out. You will know who we are. So I brought my daughter with me. She's heard the music. She didn't really, she hasn't really been into them as much because she's into K-pop, but not really them like I am. So I was like, hey, come out with me, and a bunch of us, and she did. And she ended up being like, well, who's that one? It was Doju, and she really liked him. So she liked his story and stuff. So it was just good to see different perspectives from everybody. I think I went in knowing for myself that I was going to come out. I already warned my daughter I was going to cry. I warned everybody around me. I said, I'm going to ugly cry. Just ignore anything that you're going to see, because I promise it's going to happen. And it was just great to, like, I know it sounds horrible to say it's great, but to see the emotions come out from everybody. Even like one of my best friends, Sarah, she's a very emotional person. She loves feelings. And to bring her to this and have her actually be able to experience those side of things. So it actually allowed us to express our feelings more than we have prior, because I'm the one that doesn't really speak about feelings, and she does. And that's what the Rose does for me. They allow me to be able to express my feelings and how I want to say things without actually saying it. And when I went to this documentary, I came out of it feeling like, I guess, a weight lifted off of my shoulders, because I was able to express from their perspectives on what I wanted to say, but couldn't, if that makes sense. I just think that the documentary was just like the most amazing thing, and it was so well written. And I want more. Like, I need to rewatch it over and over and over again, because that's how it just makes me feel. So
Yeah, it was definitely evident of all of the fans from both of you kind of sharing your experience. It was a communal experience in the theater. I think from Black Roses, we all felt more connected to the band, but then felt more connected to each other.
Yep.
Through that, sharing that experience of watching the film. So Evelyn, I'm kind of interested now in your perspective. It sounded in your intro that you didn't know the Rose prior to seeing the film at the Tribeca Film Festival. Is that true? Kind of reinforcing how much you knew about them going in the first time. But then what was your takeaway and perspective on the band after seeing the film?
So let me confirm, I knew nothing about the Rose. I knew nothing about the Rose. I went to the Tribeca Film Festival, and I saw, we get a list of all the movies that are being shown at the festival, and which ones you wanted to see. And the Rose sort of jumped out at me. My background, I did a lot of documentaries for MTV for like 15 years. I worked in their news and documentaries department. So that was something that's always drawn my attention. So I knew nothing about them, knew nothing about the music, knew nothing about the story. It was just something that seemed interesting to me. So when I did see it, obviously I love the music. I've said this ad nauseum on my podcast with Eugene, with Janet, with James, with everybody. I'm really happy that the film wasn't about like them being Korean, although that was one point of it. I think the thing that has come up over and over again for me watching the film, certainly with every conversation that I've had with the filmmakers, is it is a human story. And part of what I like to do in my everyday life, in my work, be it on the podcast or otherwise, it's always about finding those universal subjects and things that we can all understand. And I think we're living in a world that is so instant. Everything is instant, right? Instant coffee, instant noodles, instant headlines, sound bites, TikTok, Instagram. And that's all we're sort of going by. And here we are, I think that we need to sort of slow down everything and really look at what things are and who people are, not based on what they look like and the instant biases that might come, when you look at them. I think we really need to take the time to sort of see someone based on their strength in character, the integrity, and how they move through the world. And do they exemplify the values they hold? So that was really interesting to me. And I think that the Rose Come Back to Me certainly shined a light on all of those things. And also from a producer standpoint, and also Asian, I was blown away. And Eugene, really hats off to you and the entire team. How you talked about such emotional, vulnerable things in a film with people who are high profile, and to be able to get that honest emotion, breaking down the stigmatization of mental health, which the Asian community is still very much, that subject needs a lot of work in terms of breaking those barriers down, getting them to talk about that so honestly, but not so heavy-handed where I feel like I need to go to therapy after. It was a really beautiful balance. And then there was obviously a display about friendship, about honoring each other, about trusting each other, about, okay, well, there was one point in the film where the record company wanted to pit one against the other. And they were like, no, these are my friends. Like, I'm going to stand by them. I know who they are, and I'm going to stand by them and not cave to, the almighty dollar, so to speak. And then it's really difficult, when there's that much on the line. So I think there's a lot of wonderful, important dynamics sort of all in this film. And it was done with so much care and so much love. And I think that's something that the world, no matter what you are, I don't care if you're Asian, not Asian, whatever, I think that's something that we all need to be reminded of, is just about truth, honesty, standing by your values and like living by it, right? And not just talking it. So I think that was something that I loved, both as an audience member and certainly as a producer director. So really hats off, because I know how difficult that can be.
I like what you said, Evelyn, about how hard it must have been for the band members not to cave in to the pressure, particularly at the start of their career when they're so hungry and they want success. And that success, that ambition, because they're all ambitious. I think they're all ambitious individuals, and they want to succeed, not to give in to that temptation to throw the other member under the bus in order to get ahead, because this industry feels like it's easy to do that, to get caught up in that temptation.
Very easy.
I think I was really impressed in terms of what that shows me as, the value of their character, of each of them. I don't know, Ashley, Elpida, Kelly, any kind of reactions to that part as well?
That's why I cried. I didn't cry over Jeff's story. I knew Jeff's story. That's why I cried. That hit me hard. That someone tried to break those people apart. But they stayed strong. They stayed together. They loved each other so much, and that's what made him cry.
Can I also just add? I think this, specific point of sticking together and not caving into the huge temptation of, succeeding. And there's nothing wrong with ambition. I think the question then becomes is who is in charge of the ambition? Is the ambition in charge of you, or are you in charge of the ambition? And I think in this specific case, again, the film had so many different dynamics and points, But I think all of those points in the film, specifically, we're talking about this ambition point right now, I think is certainly applicable in every situation beyond this film, like in life. If you look around the world, there's obviously a huge, we're living in very chaotic times, politically speaking. And certainly there's a lot of division and debate on, quote unquote, which side you're on. Pick a category. I don't care what it is. Everyone's sort of talking at each other. And I think, you know, the Rose and the guys from the Rose really show us like, hey, we're better together, you know, and these are my friends and I trust them and I'm going to honor them and I'm going to stick with them. And I think the idea of community and that strength in character and belief in each other and in themselves, I think that's something that we need to be reminded of in this world.
Yeah. Ashley, did you have something you wanted to add to?
Yeah, it's the point where he said like I chose them. That's how everything like resonated all like from there on. It's just you see it from his perspective that like he had so much pressure that was put on him that he didn't cave in to just say, oh, it's only going to be about me. Because he's like, I don't want it to just be about me. I'm not doing this without them. And to have to, you know, deal with all of the struggles and to handle everything on his own because they wouldn't allow them to be there. It's, you know, I saw like, I'm sure we all felt the same thing that, you know, he went through a lot. And the fact that he was like, no, I don't care. I'm choosing them and I'm choosing us. And then that's it. That point is what kind of like, it kind of made me start thinking about like, again, my own personal, where, you know, I'm not a selfish person. I don't think of myself ever. And I'm always thinking about everybody else. And then when you hear it from other people, you're like, oh, it's normal. Like it's a normal thing. A lot of people feel this way too. And whenever, you know, you're doing something, it's like, it's us. It's everybody. And you can just kind of just feel that from them, that it's everybody together. It's the four of them. It's their team. It's everyone around them. It's not just one person. And you can truly feel that he truly believes that too.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think if I can add something, you know, I think, you know, obviously healing and healing through music is a big theme in the film. But one of the things that we did talk to the guys about a little bit was, you know, healing is never clean. You know, like a lot of times there's a scar that's left over. And, you know, I don't know what those conversations were like between, you know, the label and the guys, or between the guys, among the guys. I don't know what was said in any kind of real detail because obviously like I wasn't there. But that idea was something that we talked about a little bit. And the fact that healing, you know, is not really a binary, it's a process. It's something that continues. And on some level, you know, never really ends until we're all gone. And so I think to that end, everything that you all have been talking about, it's kind of the backdrop to the choice that they all made to stay together for me, that it wasn't just like kind of a blind faith that they had in each other necessarily, though there is some of that you have to do any of this kind of work, to be like in any kind of collaborative environment. You have to trust each other. But the fact that despite whatever hurt and despite whatever pain and despite whatever scars there might be, they decided to heal together and to choose that path is something that I think, for me at least, is, you know, inspiring and you know, creates an image of what kind of environment I think is a good and healthy creative environment to be a part of, and something that I think about, you know, going forward too, in terms of just the kinds of environments I would want to be a part of.
I feel like that saying is going to stick in my head now. That it's not clean. That there's a scar. Like I love that. I love that so much. I'm taking that.
Oh,
I'm taking that.
Eugene,
in.
get it on a T-shirt and start charging.
You should.
I'm sure I
You
didn't make
should.
it up. I mean, this is like from when James was on your pod, Evelien, and like he said, what did he say? Sammy talked about you have to enjoy the lows.
You have to enjoy the
also.
lows.
I love
Yeah.
that line.
And
Mhm.
it's
Mhm.
like there's a lot to think about in that, and I really I really appreciate that sentiment too, because the lows are
Yeah.
just part of the journey too, and it just I mean, to shout out Bay Area legend gold medalist Alyssa Liu because I was just watching some of the figure skating gala stuff. It's like, yeah, there is just a journey there, and you just really have to be about the journey, and the lows are part of that journey. But can I
But can
ask
I
a
add on to
question? I'm
something that
sorry,
you just said,
that's-
Eugene?
Oh, go ahead, Evelien.
The idea of, you just said, it's, healing is messy and it's a process. And once you have that scar, it's always going to be there. But to your point, choice is a superpower. You can choose how you handle those lows. And I think we often overlook choice. And I think the guys choosing to stick together and choosing to heal together is another sort of truth that we all need to be reminded of. Like, we're not just victims of our own situation. Like, maybe sometimes there is, but even within those situations, there is choice of how you handle that or how you choose to convert that pain or that situation into something that could be empowering. Not saying it's easy. It's kind of a bitch. And it's very much a process, but there is that thing called choice that we should also be reminded of.
It's the beauty of not actually taking the high road, it's actually being the high road. And I think that's one thing a lot of people forget, that just following your intuition and staying close to the people that you love and trust is how you get through these things. And the fact that the guys have got that level of trust between them and that ability to converse and understand each other is why they're still with us today. Because the music business is a bitch. And as soon as somebody sees dollar signs, they're just going to go, right, okay. I've seen it so many times where somebody goes in and with a great product that only needed a bit of polishing, but somebody sees a diamond in a cluster and decides they want that one diamond. So for them to carry on and be able to go through all of this is wonderful. And obviously, any creative will tell you we're all emotional people. You're all messed up. That's the reason you do anything remotely creative anyway, because it's your outlet. And the fact that they've managed to push forward with this and actually make it the message of their art is testament to them. It really is.
Eugene, are you going to cop to being messed up?
We all know
I mean,
he
aren't
is.
we all? we all have we all have what we carry. But can I
Come
ask
on,
a
we've listened to
question, not
Morrissey. We know
sidetrack
he
the
is.
discussion? Or I'm just like theatrical and self-involved.
Awesome. That was a good topic. Kelly, why don't you go on to topic number 2?
We're going to look at stripping away the mythology and showing the humanity, which is something that this documentary does so well. First question is to Evelien. As a film director and a producer yourself, can you share your perspective in the ways that the film stripped away the mythology that's so prevalent in the music industry surrounding artists, and especially in Korean music? And how do you think it showed the actual humanity of each of the band members?
I mean, that's a huge question, but I think the jumping off point is very much a continuation of, the first part of this conversation that we were all having. The music industry, film, television, all has this very glossy sheen to it, right? It's very sexy. It's very seductive. But I think there was a level of authenticity in The Rose Come Back to Me that was undeniable. I think that, again, hats off to Eugene, Diane, Janet, everyone on the creative team. Also the guys from The Rose who were open to sharing. Obviously, I don't know that this film could have been made if a relationship and a sense of trust wasn't there between the creative filmmaking team and The Rose. And I think without that synergy, I don't think you could have gotten the film that we have today, that we have on screen. And I think the humanity and sort of the clear friendship and love that they all shared with each other as people, not as artists per se, kind of came through in almost every single scene, in every single conversation. To talk about the risks that they had to take with, Coachella and some of the other shows that they were able to book, coming back from the army. Momentum is a big part of the entertainment industry, for any group and any artist. If you have momentum, you want to keep it going. But these guys had a lot of challenges. Like momentum was another one. They had to stop and go into the army. So I think in every single scene in the film, there was an overwhelming sense of humanity, and there wasn't that sheen that exists a lot where people are supposed to look good. There were issues there. It was discussed. To Eugene's point, the choice of healing and to understand that, not only wounds are messy, being a human is messy.
Mm-hmm.
We have messy emotions. Life is messy. It goes in directions that none of us want to go in. It's like drinking out of a fire hose and trying to, control this. But through all of it, I think on every single level, with each person as an individual, they showed who they were by their actions. They showed the importance of community by coming together, again, through their actions. So I think through every single perspective of this film, no matter which way you slice it, humanity was there. And I think all of these lessons and these values that this film spotlighted transcend far beyond the rose. It is about every person. It is about every situation, no matter what your race, walk, profession is, or background. And I think these are all universal lessons that we can apply in our everyday lives, no matter what it is. Look at the other person, honor them. These are the values you hold. Show me, live by it. Show me through your actions. Don't just talk about it. The importance of community. I think that's something that, not to be political, but that is certainly important and something that we're all lacking no matter what part of the world you're living in. It's not just about like, oh, this is for me and I'm going to do it no matter what. It's like you got to weigh the consequences. And I think that is a part of the human experience. So again, I don't think that this film has like one note. And this is why I love the film so much. It really hits on so many different levels and spotlights lessons that I think we can all be reminded of.
Definitely. Completely and utterly agree with everything that you've said there. So, Ashley and Elpida, fans don't get to see the personal side of music artists. And obviously, this is something that is shown in bucket loads during this documentary. You get such a candid view into their mindset, how they dealt with all the trials and trepidations that they did. Has this changed your perspective of them as individuals?
I don't think it changed much of a perspective. I think it just made me grow more of a respect for them. Because when you're in that side of things, again, like I said earlier, there's only so much that we are able to see. And when you have a film like this that allows you to go deep into the raw emotions of each one of the members and the group and like what they have gone through this entire time, it made me grow so much more of a respect for everybody that they are just human. They're not just idols. They're not just, musicians or, it allows you to see that everyone is human. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of us, we forget. They are idols, right? They're here for us. They're here to give us their music, and they want us to see this side, and they want us to love them, and we love them and we want to support them. But we don't see enough as fans the human side of things. And I feel like that's what a lot of the, idols and just artists in general are missing, is the raw side of it. And when they go live, I love it because they are just so they're just so raw. They just allow you to see everything, and they don't care because that's what we also do. And it's good to see that, like, that they're just being human. So when you have a film like this that allows us, to see that side, is that there are so much more, there's so much more that they are going through than just what we see on the screen. And when you have a film like this, I think it's just amazing. It really.
Frida, how about you?
Having worked in the industry, I tend to see behind the idol. So I get to understand their feelings without them telling us. But the Rose were always very transparent. Just by listening to their lyrics, you can understand how much pain they have suffered, how many struggles. They never try to hide, and they never tried to be idols. They were always human, and that goes to the previous conversation. Black Roses, they can feel that. They get that from the boys, and we feel that connection. We all have similar lives. We all have similar scars, so we connect. We feel each other through their lyrics and their music. We can feel their pain, and we had similar pains, so it's a bond between them and Black Roses. And most Black Roses have similar scars. So we're all healing together. That's what keeps us very bonded. But the boys were never idolized.
Can I just say one thing? I didn't know them as musicians and artists, and I certainly now I do, and I appreciate their artistry and music. But what I have really gained is respect for them as people. I really respect who they are as people. And going to, I think, Ashley and Elpida's point is because they've been authentic and transparent with their experiences and emotions, I think that allows actual connection from the audience to the artists. And that's a real rooted connection. You gain a much more deeper appreciation and stronger connection when you are able to relate to someone as a human versus as an idol. An idol always has a sheen. It's always an image. But when you can connect with the person, that's really when you have a very fulfilling experience.
Eugene, did the film really start out with the idea of being as candid as it was? Or was it literally just the fact that the guys were just so open and vulnerable about their story that you actually allowed that narrative of it being so candid to come to the fore?
I think it was both of those things. I think it was a lot of the things that folks have talked about. I think from the beginning, they were very open and willing to be honest about their journey. And I think a lot of that points again to their independence. Like the fact that they are outside of the system, the main system, outside of the main four companies, and have a degree of control over their image. It's something that can't be ignored, and it's something that gives them the freedom to do that. And it reminds me of something that Clive, who I think most of you know who that is, said when we asked him what the rose represents to him, and he said the rose represents freedom. And it was just that. And I think they have that freedom to be open. They have that freedom to to talk about everything. And I think for us as documentary filmmakers, we look for that. We hope for that. And sometimes we're disappointed by promises of being honest and open, but then, once the cameras start rolling, people get a little bit more nervous, and understandably so. These are all very, very human impulses, and I get that. But I think there's also just a lot of credit that goes to, honestly, since so much of the band of the inception of the film started with their management knowing, like Janet and Sanjay and some of the folks who were operating more on the producer level, like there was a sense of trust that was already there. And then once Diane sort of started on the project, and as well as Rich Hama and Soyeon who were really there for every single shoot, and kind of our small team was together, like there was a sense of trust that we built on top of everything else that was there. And I think that's what hopefully created an environment where we were able to have them feel comfortable because I think, yeah, without that trust, there really is no film. And I think we knew how rare of a story it is to hear from folks from inside the Korean entertainment industry, like being able to share so much. I think we all, if we're calling a buck, we know that there's a lot of content out there that's just like content, and like it's just put out there very quickly, knowing that fans will consume it. And which isn't to say that like there isn't, compelling stuff in there, but oftentimes, like, yeah, the market incentives are much stronger to the point of dehumanizing the actual people behind it. And I think that was such just a goal that we had from the beginning, to like all of us to humanize them. I mean, I'm reminded of one of the very first shoots that there were. It was at the Wonder music video shoot here in Southern California, and it's in the dressing room, the trailer, and like the camera goes up, and Sammy Woo-sung just starts monologuing about how, like, listen, this is a documentary, we're the Rose, we're going to show you everything, not all of it's great, but just understand that we're human, and that's what we're going to show you, and go. It was such a like cute moment, but it very much reflects their ethos, and I think what we were hoping to accomplish with the film as well.
Yeah, it's so funny you say that. One, that sounds like just like him. But two, I think any fan knows that, Sam can get a little too candid sometimes. It's like too much information, Sammy. So I'm just curious, like, did maybe him in particular, because I've heard him kind of say, oh, it could have gone even more candid. They could have shown more. Was there anything he said that you all were just like, okay, guys, like, we can't put that in here? Or no?
He's literally talking about watching pornography, like in front of his mom. It's just like, well,
yeah, right.
I mean, come on. I mean, we've all experienced the sort of Q&As before the shows.
Yeah.
We know the crap that spills out of that man's mouth. So, I mean, I don't think he has any.
You've seen the lives since then. Like,
I know. I don't think we ever need to worry about
wanted more of a soundbite from his mother. You should have gotten B-roll of that.
Yeah, no. Happy to say.
I love
that
scene. Is one of my favorite scenes for so many reasons. One, that contract was still on the wall. Like, what?
Yep.
So many questions. Like,
no, especially for him, because he's someone who I think really kind of lets the past be the past, as opposed to someone like Do-jun, who's such the archivist, such the documenter, who wants everything for the Rose Museum someday. So it was interesting that it was there. Yeah.
Hilarious.
We know there's got to be an actual physical museum at some point, though. Just basically for Eugene to actually put all the crap that is hoarded in one place.
All 2 terabytes.
It's got to happen. It's going to run out of storage space at some point.
I mean, let's be real. If it's 2 terabytes, it's like, yeah, not all of it is necessary.
I know. We know for a fact he sort of developed klepto fingers, didn't he, during the Alive video? It's like, nobody will notice if these metal roses come home with me.
Yeah. He's like, I'm going to take this.
We know there's got to be a physical museum. Yeah, exactly.
All right. So our next topic, I think this is kind of an interesting one. We're going to talk about the inclusion of the backstory of the Far East movement and transparent arts. So some interesting feedback that I've honestly seen kind of across social media from fans is that some have commented that they didn't quite understand why there was that inclusion of the backstory of the Far East movement and transparent arts, which is now the former management company of the Rose. So Eugene, I think I kind of want to start with you as the filmmaker. Like, what is your reaction to that feedback, and maybe tell us your perspective on why it was important to show some of their backstory when telling the Rose's story?
Yeah, that was really interesting to hear, and I think, I think it really just stems from a lot of identity questions.
I'm actually really surprised to hear about this feedback. Very surprised.
It's interesting to hear, and I wonder, I wonder, like, I see where that comes from. I think that reflects maybe, I don't know, the decision that would be made in another kind of film that might be more just, maybe focus on the guys and maybe created with a different kind of mindset. But I think because I think everybody on the team, but especially those of us like myself, Diane, Rich, Soyeon, like the ones who come from documentary backgrounds, like we're looking for the human story. And so much of us, I think, because of our identity as Asian Americans, so much of the Asian American story, I feel like, is rooted in a sense of loss and erasure. And that can kind of operate on a few different directions. But I think the main one I'll mention is, I remember, when my grandmother was getting towards the end of her time, I wanted to hear more stories about my life. I was a teenager, like, it was obviously like a meaningful experience, but as I was asking her these questions, like even with my mom there kind of as an intermediary, like I just couldn't understand what she was saying. Like my Korean wasn't really quite good enough. My language ability wasn't good enough. And I don't think that's an uncommon experience for a lot of families that come from immigrants. I don't want to speak too much for you, Evelien. I don't know what your background is, or for any of the rest of you where immigration, I'm sure like there's always a story. But I think, for the very specific experience that I had and for a lot of my peers had, there is that rupture that comes with this cultural gap and this language gap where you just feel this giant hole where a past or a history might be. And I think, because of my age, I'm 49 years old now, so grew up in Los Angeles and like have seen kind of, what's been built up over the course of my life, going from when I was a kid and no one would know what a Korean was, like they'd say, "What are you?" I'd say, "I'm Korean." They say, "Okay, is that Korean? Is that Chinese or Japanese?" I'd say, "No, I'm Korean." It's like, no, like there's this disconnect to now where it's just very different. I think that's why a lot of the work that I've been most moved by and what I hope that whatever I work on does is work that helps to foster and build community. I think I've just seen what not having a community feels like. And so it's been really meaningful on this journey with the Rose film to see the community that's there. And I mean, from what you all have been saying, to help strengthen those ties of community, which I think is what I hope happens. But community, I feel like, you can go sideways with community or up and down. And what I mean by that is like this kind of intergenerational conversation that is so lacking, I feel like, a lot of the time. And which is why, this feedback made me think of my grandmother. And so for the Roses story and for Far East Movement, I think in building a community, that kind of intergenerational connection is so important. Like you need to know what the unks and the elders have gone through. And if you don't, you're just going to be making stuff up on your own. You're going to be having to just reinvent the wheel over and over and over again. And so every time I see a connection like that, it's just really moving to me. It just really resonates with me. And to see that of all folks, like the Far East Movement, the group behind like a G6 was involved in sort of some of this intergenerational transfer of knowledge, wisdom, experience with the Rose was something that I found, and I think a lot of our team found, too important not to include. Like, because they are a part of the Roses story, and writ large, it's the story of building a community, whether it's a Black Rose fandom, whether it's an Asian American creative community, whether it's any creative community, that I think we found to be so human and so compelling that we had to include it.
Evelien, you just interviewed, as we mentioned, James Rowe on your podcast, Reppin. Share your perspective on including this in the film. As a fellow filmmaker, do you think it added to the film? Do you think it took away from the story of the Rose?
You can say you took away from the story of Rose. It's fine.
No, I was going to
say, took away from the story of the Rose.
I was going to say, excuse me, Eugene. I was going to say it was actually one of my favorite parts of the film. To Eugene's point, it really is about kind of knowing where you've been, right? To know who you are now. And without acknowledgement, that's you're sort of haphazard, in terms of where you are right now and what it took to get here. And I think that transformation of experience and wisdom and how James is building that community and paying it forward is amazing, because on many levels, there is a scarcity of mindset. I think that's, again, another applicable thing that we're seeing in multiple areas in life, no matter where you are. The fact that, the Far East movement was one of the first groups, Asian bands, that broke through Billboard charts. And to know the challenges that they face, that going on a publicity tour, as Eugene and I both know, it's a grueling schedule when you're doing this kind of thing and doing press. But it is all to facilitate the support of a project. And you expect, from a business point of view and also from an artist point of view, the support and the return of investment to grow. For them to go on that breakneck pace of promotions and see a diminishing returns is shocking. To see that they have faced all they have, taken this information and helped build the Rose, so the Rose can sort of continue that leg of the journey, so to speak, or continue community building, that is huge. To kind of dumb this all down, I think in some ways, it's almost like, the Rose is the chair, right? But without the legs of the chair, you got like a thing on the floor. You don't have a chair. Far East movement, to me, are the legs. And each person, especially in this thing, this day and age, we're all standing on the shoulders of somebody else, our predecessors. And without acknowledging them and understanding what they've done, we are a little bit lacking in our own perspective and strength in what we can do and what we need to do to continue that path. And I think that was really important. And, again, I couldn't agree more with Eugene with why this was so important. But I also think what James and the Far East movement and Eugene and Janet, and I'm saying this both as an Asian American and also as a producer in documentaries, they are continuing to pay it forward, continuing to build community and not gatekeeping because of scarcity of mindset, or saying, I'm bitter because I didn't do this. And look at now, you guys are here and you're not acknowledging me. It's none of that. It's like, what can I do to give you a hand up and strengthen our community from what I've learned? And how are we so much better for it? And I think for that inspires me to continue doing the podcast. As we were talking offline, I didn't know how much work a podcast was. I would rather be taking a nap and watching K-dramas. Right. But I will say this, when I get an opportunity to speak with Eugene or James or Janet, it reminds me that how important the work and the conversation is, because I'm standing on Janet's shoulders because I didn't have anything that I could relate to until she gave us the Joy Luck Club. So all of this is community building, and it's a huge shift that we really need. And now I know I stand on their shoulders and I want to continue that work. I want to honor that. And then also it's like a relay race, right? Do my leg of the race as strong as I can. So I think that part of the film is incredibly important and just such a wonderful gift that James and the Far East movement and Janet and Eugene and Diane are all doing. And I think that was a wonderful part to include, because now we know, the Rose is there partly because of what Far East movement did.
Yeah, I think a couple of things from the film were poignant for me. I think, as you're saying, Evelyn, when James talked openly about the failures that they had and the lessons he learned through their experiences with Far East movement, and how he wanted to take that and try to support the Rose in a way to move them forward, from what, he learned. And then I think of something Jeff, acknowledged in his one-on-one interview in the film, where he talks about just K-pop in general and how much, that paving the way for a group like the Rose to be so successful overseas, more successful in the United States, in Europe, in South America than they honestly are in Korea. And that couldn't have come, without the predecessors through the K-pop industry. So, as fans, Elpida, Ashley, what's your perspective? Elpida, why don't we start with you?
Because of my previous profession, I think behind every artist there's a small microcosmos. I don't know the English word for microcosmos, like a small little world surrounding him, like the roots. The people surrounding the artist is the roots. These roots are protecting him, they're feeding him, and they help him grow. So I thought that why they had this addition, to show that there are people surrounding them that help them survive. So I couldn't make the connection. Then I made the connection after I talked to some people. So I understood why it was there. But I thought I needed a little more time for Hajun. That I felt like that kept me from listening to a little bit of Hajun's stories. Maybe he had more to say. I felt like he had less time than the others. I don't know if if he had actual less time, but it felt like he had less time.
To be honest with you, I think it was same. It was probably one of my favorite parts. To be able to like see the roots of where everything has come from. And I love that song. Okay, when I when I was growing up, that was one of my favorite songs. So to not only hear about the Roses side of things, but also their side of the story, I thought it was great to be able to attach both perspectives, because you're again what they are is they're building a community. It's for everybody. So they're to be able to see it from not just it just being about the Roses. I had no idea the struggles that they went through, and what they had to do to even get to that point, and the fact that they were like, yeah, you know what, we're gonna do this with the Rose, and it's gonna make everything that much better. And it brought the culture everywhere. And it kind of saddened me, because again, like being here in the United States, I was like, I had no idea that it was even like that. And to see their perspective of it, I was like, it makes you really start to open your eyes and be like, okay, well, now you have a larger respect and you understand things more. So to bring that in, I loved it. I thought it was great.
Yeah, plug for Evelyn's podcast episode.
Yeah, go check out my show.
Bro. Yeah, I think, Evelyn, one thing that struck me in the interview you had with him was just, when you have a hit like a G6, right, that hit #1 on Billboard Hot 100, which is so challenging to do. And he talked about, then when you have this massive success as the artist, you want to try to figure out how to replicate it.
Yeah.
And they never could.
No.
They just never quite could figure that out. And I think of how hard that is as an artist, because there's this choice. It goes back to choice in a way, Evelyn, something you said before. Far East Movement was choosing to try to replicate that, right? To try to keep that momentum, as you talked about. And this is what I respect so much about the Rose. They hit 83 on the Billboard Top 200, #1 emerging artist with Back to Me. Huge. And what we all expected was they were going to try to replicate it. And they didn't. They came out with World, which was so much quieter and so much more introspective. And they got a lot of criticism for that. Why are you doing this? We want something upbeat. Where's Back to Me #2? And I think, again, they made a choice. They made a choice to stay true to who they were and what art they wanted to put out. And I thought about that a lot when I was watching your interview, to be honest, with hearing James's experience with Far East Movement, and then reflecting on the Rose and some of the decisions they made that really struck me.
But listen, they're in a situation where they're damned if they do and they're damned if they don't, right? If they do a replication of something similar to their first hit, then the criticism's like, this is the same song, it sounds the same. So, choices is something that people should exercise. And I just want to go back to something. Eugene, you and I are kind of in the same age bracket. I'm a little older than you, but I think it's safe to say that my brain was like blowing out of my head when you were telling me there's a Korean band selling out Madison Square Garden. I'm like, what? How is this even possible? Because for me growing up, I could have, the chances of, Bugs Bunny selling out at Madison Square Garden would have been better than having like a huge Korean pop band. I mean, that to me was completely unheard of. Like, honestly, if you told me Elvis and Bigfoot got together and is like doing a doo-wop group, that would have made more sense to me than a Korean band selling out, stadiums. So it's possible because of people like Far East Movement, because now Rose is taking on that baton and continuing that work, because the whole, look, the K-pop system, that's a whole nother series and a whole different conversation entirety, but you can't take away the fact that they have made headway, to Eugene's point, the work he's been doing and also how he lives his life every single day is work that is changing the narrative. So I think, I think it's just so important to salute who is doing the work, who came before, to understand the challenges that they've had to go through so we can be where we are today, and then also to know how much further we have to go.
Yeah, absolutely.
If I could add to that, I think, Far East Movement perhaps ran into some obstacles because the world was not ready for Asian American rappers to a certain extent. And that's obviously like, there's a lot to unpack there in terms of race and genre and what that means in pop music. But, is there a similar question for the Rose? Like, are there certain expectations about what a group that looks like that should be doing musically? Like, is the world ready for like a Korean rock band or an Asian rock band? Like, I don't know. Like, is this a line that's there? Is this, to your point, Evelien, like, is this just how far we have left to go? Like, this is the question that we also wanted to underscore with that.
I mean, that's a whole nother point. And let me just, and I'm not trying to be like a shameless plug here, but representation, if you can be it, if you can see it, and it's not possible until it is. So, I think the whole shoulds, it's like, they're great musicians. Why shouldn't they be a great band? It's not that, should a Korean rock band be this way? It's like, that's just an external label. They're great musicians. And the only thing they should be is just turning out great music. So I think, to your point, Eugene, they are also continuing the work, representing what can be possible and what should be possible. They shouldn't be based on like what they look like. It should be based on whether the music's good.
I loved World. I thought that was probably one of my like number one albums that was out there. Well, when we went through, we did at the end of the year a recap. We were like, name your number one album that you had for 2025. And I was like, World, 100%. Like there was not even a thought of any other album that was out there. And then they asked why. And I was like, because it allowed me to express emotions that I can't.
What I was going to say is the fact that you have to have the foundations of music. Music industry is built on the shoulders of giants, whether or not that is blues musicians, whether or not that is jazz musicians. None of us would be here. I wouldn't have the ability to do what I do without the pioneering women that went out and started working in metal and started doing that as independents. Because if they didn't do that, I wouldn't have any representation either. It's still very much a male-dominated world. But you needed to include the Far East Movement in this. They went through, they did the lessons learnt. They managed to create and form this community. And without that, I don't think the guys would be able to have the ability to create an album like World. I mean, I have a slightly different opinion about the World album. As a musician, yes, I understand the beauty of the vulnerability and everything that's expressed through the storytelling of it. But if it wasn't for the fact that they'd had this sort of guard and formation and foundation underneath them, that wouldn't have happened. That support network is key in music. And I hope and pray that as the guys go forward, they step into that mantle and they start to help other people with their representation and allow them to be open and honest to the world about who they are as well.
Amen.
Hear, hear. Hear, hear.
Yeah, love that.
And Eugene, you got to admit though, right? You're like kind of like floored at how much Asian entertainment is selling to the mainstream, right?
It's very confusing. Honestly. And like, I don't think I've heard a good theory as to why. And I also,
because it's freaking
I'll
good.
It is, but like, I say this as someone who, like, I'm of Korean descent, and we all have like a reasonable amount of pride in who we are, of course, but I'm also someone who's just like, patriotism is the last refuge of a scoundrel. Like, I'm very self-critical about like a lot of identity stuff. And so there's a part of me that's just like, well, why the Korean stuff and why not the Filipino stuff? There are more Filipinos in America. Why not the Chinese stuff? Like, there's all these questions that come to mind. And like, this is obviously the topic for another podcast, but it's confusing. But I'm happy.
You need to come back on my show right now.
New topic.
I'm just really grateful for it because I this is something I was starved for as a kid. And Eugene and I think we talked in passing. I still carry some of that.
We all do, of course.
Yeah, that sort of messed up identity from then, and I'm just so grateful that Far East movement and all the work beyond just this film and this music is being done, because it really is something so much bigger than entertainment and music.
Something to being like a minority of a minority in this country and having such a small voice to the point of being rendered invisible for most of the time that we were growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And I
now
think
we're
that's
still fighting tooth and nail for it.
Yeah. And I think, then there's always like stages to this too, because representation is so important. It's so important. But then representation is also not liberation. And it's like, how far do we have to go to feel fully human? And I think that's something that obviously motivates, I think, so much of what I and a lot of the people on the documentary team and on are motivated by, to try and move that forward. Because if we don't, then we know what it feels like to be invisible again. We live in a country that wants to make us invisible right now.
Yeah, we're rolling back decades.
And
let's not get into that because it makes me very, very angry, and I'm not even in your country.
Well, don't rub it in, Kelly.
Yeah.
Don't worry, they're not that brilliant here. But obviously not quite that bad.
Yes.
Anyway,
sorry. Moving on.
Don't rub it in, okay?
Let's talk about Yes. Carrying on. This is not the
I'm not
medicine.
sitting in your country. I'm sitting in London.
Isn't this what we talked about? This is what the rose does. It brings out emotions. It brings out what we
jealousy and
brings out
envy.
what we want to say.
Jealousy and envy. Oh,
I'm
trust
sitting
me.
in London where we have
Those are
high
emotions
tea
too.
and snacks.
No one
and
said
crumpets.
they had to be perfect emotions.
Evelyn,
Listen, I'm just jealous of New York right now.
What?
I'm from the grim up
What?
north.
Kelly's a
North.
northerner. She's a northerner.
I'm a
She's never a
northerner.
Londoner. She's a northerner.
To us Yanks, you're all the same.
Yeah, there's only one city.
It's just London. You Brits are all the same.
Yeah.
If there's one thing I'm happy for Stephen Patrick Morrissey for, it's that I know that Manchester is not London.
Wait, you don't live in Bridgerton?
No, I don't. I feel like I should get my Empire Line dress on. It's probably not a good idea on a podcast. I know you can see the top half of me. That would be distracting. Anyway, let's move swiftly.
Let's make Kelly's editing job easier. Yes.
One of the things that we've been able to do is discuss how wonderful this film is. This documentary opens up the floor for debate, and it brings forward so many really important topics. And obviously, as we've discussed the other questions that have gone through this, it's brought about this ability just to be able to converse within multiple communities, whether that's a fandom, whether that's an artistic community, whether that's a musicians community. So how do you think, as a group of people, that this very wonderful documentary, Eugene, we're going to bloat your ego a little bit here because it is a wonderful documentary. Don't shake your head.
Wait, what
We
film
know
is
how
this?
good it is. Yeah, I know. I don't know. I think I must have slept through it.
We're talking about Bridgerton still. Sorry. Yes.
Yeah, we're talking about
behind the
Bridgerton.
scenes.
This is true. Yes, definitely. Anyway, so Ashley and Elpida, can you tell me one topic that you feel that the documentary brought a light to for you that isn't normally seen in a music documentary, that's not commonplace? Because normally most music documentaries are, here's the band, here's them getting ready to do a tour, here they are on stage, good night. And obviously,
And they're all structured exactly that way.
exactly, that is the premise of every single music documentary that you've ever seen in your goddamn life. Hello, little bit, the end.
Why are you so
This one-
angry, Kelly?
Guys, because I'm British, for crying out loud.
This is why we get along, Kelly.
I'm a passionate lady. You all think I'm reserved. I'm not, goddammit. Anyway.
An angry bloke.
An angry bloke. But yeah, no, it's one of those things where most documentaries just tend to follow this very formulaic thing of it's a beginning, a middle, and an end. And this one is very much like the traditional sort of hero story, as silly as that sounds. So were there things in the actual documentary that you weren't expecting?
I knew going into it I was going to learn more of their backstory. I wasn't expecting the raw side of their backstory, if that makes sense, to understand, Jeff's side of things, to understand what, Sammy has gone through and, the beginning and where they're at now. So going in and hearing that side of it, like when you hear documentaries, even now, people are going through and they're talking about their life and stuff. But when you have it from the musician side, I think that's just absolutely amazing to understand it from there. It opened up a whole new light. I feel like I'm constantly being a broken record, but it just allows us to gain more respect for them and really understand, what they're going through. And they're allowing us to do that. They're not hiding it. Because they don't want to. They want us to know, what they went through as like going into K-pop as a K-pop idol and saying, this isn't it. It's hard. It's rough. When you see all these K-pop idols, you think, oh, everything's great. It's just what's on the surface, but you don't see what's going on behind the scene. And for them to be able to go in and actually say, it's rough, it's not like what you expected it to be, it opens up a whole new light and you're like, okay, well, I have a whole new respect for everything that you guys are doing. And like, we know that they're going through and they're working hard and stuff, but when they're actually sitting in front of the camera and you see the real tears coming out of his eyes, I lost it at that point. I lost it. I was like, I do not want to see Sammy cry right now. I do not. So to like see them crying, seeing them upset, seeing all of that, it's amazing to see that they can express that in a way. And it allowed me to be able to really express who I am. I was like, okay, I just need a moment to myself to reflect, to understand what's happening. And they just allow us to open up in a whole nother way that I feel like everybody should experience that. And just seeing all like these clips and everything that she has put together, and then that the story behind, Jeff and everything, it's amazing to really see all that. Phenomenal job. Like, I can't express it enough that the emotion that was put in. It's not just from them, but you can also feel the emotion that's coming from the director, that's coming from the producers, that's coming from that, because you have to have those emotions in order to be able to put that together. So just wanted to say it was absolutely amazing. And I'm so grateful that I was able to see that. And I truly appreciate it.
I think she liked it, Eugene.
I might have. Maybe just a little bit.
It was all right.
Nah, not at all. I didn't like it at all.
Yes, I think that documentary broke all the conventions in its category. They brought up the mental health issues, the dispute with the Jane Star. Who would do that? Many things that most people would try and hide under the rug. No, everything was very raw. It was the truth behind the guys. It was pure truth. That's why it touched so many people. You could see it. It was their truth. And it was everything, it was approached with so much tenderness and care and love. You could see that, you could feel that. They were very respectful over the boys. That's why they felt so at ease to open up so much, I think. It was amazing. It was very touching. You could sense it.
Evelyn, what's your perspective on this?
I'll say this. I think the film did a wonderful job on a lot of fronts, but I think ultimately for me, it was inspiring to see that they had the courage to be human. And for all that being human is, messy and complicated, but also very much a beacon of the truths that they hold. And I think for me, that's my biggest takeaway, is to always have the courage to be who you are and to be human, and for all that it means.
I love that.
That's all I've got to say.
Oh, dear.
I love the film. It's not that bad, my accent. I could
Better
talk
than
like
mine.
this. I could talk like this too,
Oh, dear.
I love the film. It's like an awesome film. But yeah, it had universal appeal, and I think everyone should go back and see it, because there's too many people trying to project images and stories of who they think they should be. And I think this was such a shining example of just being who you are and embracing it and being human.
Eugene, in terms of legacy of the actual film, is there a topic that you hope viewers will be talking about long after seeing the film?
I mean, I feel awkward answering questions like that, if only because, and I think I'm stealing an answer from one of the guys that they gave at some point. It's kind
tell
of
us that.
I'm happy to. I'm happy to. No, I will give credit where credit is due.
Okay.
It's sort of up to people to take away what they will take away. I don't think that's for us to decide necessarily. Like, that'll be something that comes out of the people who have been kind enough to come watch the film. But I think over the course of this conversation, like, we've touched on so many of the topics that we hope will come up. So I think this conversation has given me like a good feeling and a good sense that thankfully we will have gotten across what we want to get across outside the Far East movement stuff. But like, I think, to borrow Elpida's framing about breaking conventions, I mean, I think we got into this film hoping to do that. Certainly, we wanted to not just break conventions in terms of just like the kind of movie we make, but what we talk about. Like, because they're so open about their mental health, we hope that we'll be able to inspire those conversations, especially coming, as one of our executive producers, Bina Shukla, said, like, especially coming from young men, to like hear young men talking about their emotions so openly, with all the conversations that are happening right now about masculinity and toxic masculinity, like to see that and to still see them be fucking rock stars, like, is a statement in and of itself. But also, I mean, I think to be able to see these guys really push past any stereotypes that are about them that might exist in the world, make music their own way, follow their own path, chase their own destiny in a system and in an environment where that's not what the world is telling you you should do. Like, I think that energy is something that certainly we're hoping that people will take.
Great. All right, Kelly, you said you wanted me to do a would you rather. I was going to try to treat this as such a serious discussion, but since we've been laughing, and hopefully some of that will come in the bloopers that we'll put out, I've got a funny would you rather here.
What is a would you rather?
Okay, yeah. Do you know the would you rather challenge? Or in Korean TV, they call it the balance game. If you watch like Korean variety shows.
No, I'm still on the streaming K-dramas, like not sleeping for 2 weeks.
So on the podcast,
Hence
when
the
it's just
bags.
Kelly and I, we usually just end with kind of something funny. So I usually put her in these horrid scenarios that is always a pick the lesser of two evils.
God.
Torturous. I like to torture her.
Oh, this is just for Kelly.
No, today
Normally?
I'll open it up
no.
to
It's
anybody.
extended
Normally,
to our
no.
guests.
Yes.
All right, hey, gotta go, y'all. Sorry.
Gotta
It's been
go.
great talking.
Sorry. Yep.
Yeah. You know,
I'm
great
running
conversation,
long.
y'all.
It's-
Really
I have a
appreciate
heart
it.
out.
Breaking up a little
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah.
I might need to hang
Oh,
up
I'm out
real
of
quick.
memory. Sorry.
Okay.
Hello?
Imagine
Hello?
we're all on the interview team for the Rose documentary, and you're having to interview Sammy and Leo. And on the podcast, we like to tease the Rose, and all in good fun. I think the Rose knows that we love them. So Sammy, you know, we said he tends to talk out his ass a lot. I can't imagine how much. I think he probably has the most interview footage, actually, because I think the man, he's a yapper, so he never shuts up. So you're interviewing him for 12 straight hours. And
That's an interrogation.
You're trying to get him to sit still, because he won't sit still, and he just keeps rambling. Or your other choice is Leo. We like to tease Leo because he's pretty hyper. Like he seems like he's like bouncing off the walls. So he's got tons of sugar and he's just talking. And he keeps moving around and he keeps trying to do his music and he won't pay attention for 12 hours. So you're trying to rein him in. So who would you rather deal with? Leo or Sammy in that situation?
I'm
How
not
about
saying
you,
anything
Ash?
because I was in this situation, so I'm not going to say anything.
No,
He's
you
like, how
can't
did
just
you
bow
know
out.
that was the truth?
Eugene, you can't just bow out. This is a community.
All right, Ashley, you go first.
Come on, get back here.
Well, first I'm going to start with, I don't know if I can handle 12 hours in general, but for me, I'm serious. Okay, that's a lot for me. But if I'm going to be serious, I would probably pick, being with Sammy for 12 hours because he rambles and so do I. And I feel like it would probably last longer than 12 hours because we would just keep going and it would just continue. I don't know if I'd be able to stop him and keep him focused because I can't focus myself either. So I think I would probably do that just because I feel like there would be so much that I would be able to take out of this conversation.
I love
that
it.
I would probably enjoy it more than I would be in trying to stop it. So I'd probably be the enabler to make it continue.
All right, Elpida, how about you?
What was the practical type? Am I allowed to smoke those 12 hours?
Yes.
Yeah.
Elpida, I'm surprised you haven't picked up your cigarette again. Like,
Okay, I'm going
I've
with
been
Sammy.
waiting.
She's like,
If I'm allowed to smoke, I'm going with Sammy. I have to take 12 hours in a row.
she's like a hostage negotiator.
The Johnny's
Probably feel a bit like that, to be honest.
with a non-smoker. Imagine me with a non-smoker for 12 hours. And I have to respect that the other one won't smoke. So, Sammy is. He can
I like that
rumble
that's
and mumble and-
your deciding factor.
Yeah,
Whether or not she could
that's your
make it
deciding
happen.
factor.
Nicotine intake.
I'm always practical. Always. I'm practical type. I have to take
All
it
right,
for 12
Kelly, I'm
hours.
going to you next. Who are you picking?
Well, I mean, it'd be a bit like Stockholm syndrome, wouldn't it? To be honest, I mean, you've got one that can't sit still and just goes, and another one that literally bounces off the wall. But then again, you're a yapper as well, so I'm used to 12 hours worth of yapping.
Wow.
See what I deal with, guys? See what I deal with? The abuse.
Like a marriage.
Come on.
It's a good
It is
marriage.
happy hour time there, so.
I know I need to drink after this.
Yeah, Anne and I are in the same time zone.
Yeah.
I'm going to say, I've not got the drip going, to be perfectly honest. I would.
We know
probably
you've been
say
tanked the whole
Dojuni.
time.
You're
Yeah,
going
I'd probably say
Dojuni?
Dojuni. Yes.
Yeah. All right, Eugene. We're gonna wrap with Evelyn. Eugene.
No, we're gonna go with. We should wrap. Okay, yeah, Eugene.
No, go with Evelyn. I did
no,
this.
Eugene.
I love this.
It's like, this was my life for 2 years.
No, don't be diplomatic.
I'll say no. Well, no. I mean, Dojun's interview was 3 hours long. Sammy's was like 5, but that was entirely because we had Dojun and Hajun both scheduled on the same day, so we only had about 3 hours for each. It could have gotten longer.
But that's not
That's
the
all I'll say.
question, Eugene.
I know, and I'm avoiding answering your question.
I know. That's why I'm redirecting
Are you
it.
from Switzerland by any chance?
What?
Are you from Switzerland by any chance? There does seem to be this sort of, I'm going to sit on the fence and be very comfortable here.
Switzerland, yes.
It was Jeff's interview.
Jeff's was about 3.5, 4 hours. Also,
Okay, so
Jeff
Sammy was
started
the
late.
longest. I called
Jeff
that.
started late though because Jeff landed in LA like at 8 o'clock at night from Korea and just came straight into the interview. So we didn't start the interview until like 9 o'clock at night or something. So like I felt
Again,
so
that's
bad.
not the
Like,
question.
Thank you, Evelyn.
I'm redirecting Eugene. Which is your choice?
Dealt with Yapper Sam, so you know.
Well, they're
You
all
know what that's like.
They all talk, so they're all great. You know who I wish I had more time with was Hajun.
There you go. See, Elpida thinks Hajuni needed more screen time.
Sometimes the footage just says what it says, but like in the film needs the structure it needs. But yeah, it would have been cool
More
to
the
talk about
quiet
him.
one. So
I mean, he is, but he has a lot to say, and he has.
It's
a lot
always better to have more than less, though, isn't it? In the edit room.
Oh no, for sure. I
most
feel
part.
so bad because like he actually, I was watching one of the Korean stages that they did, and there's that moment where, you know, he talks about like it's his line where he's just like he sort of a little bit makes fun of Dojun's looks.
yes,
And
he called you guys out.
Yeah, and actually someone in the audience was like, evil editor. And no, he did say a nice thing about Dojun after that. So yeah. That is,
But it was.
I mean,
I'm sorry, but it was so much funnier. That
No, and
line you got, and you cut him right at basically him saying like, "But is
Exactly.
yeah, and Hajun like was very diplomatic about it and said that he's he's happy with how it came out because people seem to enjoy it. So I think, but I'm glad that Dojun knows that Hajun was thinking all the nice things about him.
he?" Aw,
Don't redirect, Evelyn. Don't redirect, Evelyn. Don't redirect.
I'm not. I know how to when to get the foot off the gas.
All right, Evelyn, who would you pick? You're a producer. Well,
Yeah.
imagine yourself in this situation with these
Oh, I know. I
two.
don't need to imagine. I've definitely been in multiple times where I've been in both of these situations where one is painful and then the other one's like, "Hi, over here." I will say that I would rather just go with the one that's like bouncing off the walls, because I've been in a marathon interview and I'm like we've had to change SD cards because they're just still talking, and we're like close to wrap, and it was fucking painful. I'm not going to say who this is. I'll tell you guys offline, but like I'd rather try to wrangle somebody for a short amount of time to get like a few sound bites versus like an 18-hour, like I can't even, my brain is like oatmeal. You know, I would rather do the short versus the
I'm with
long.
you.
Yeah, because long, it doesn't mean you get
I'm with
anything.
you.
It's just like 18 hours of like, shut up. You know, it's just, you can't. So I'd rather try to nail somebody down for a short spurt than to do like like a 4-day run at something and you still have nothing.
Yeah.
I don't think Diane and I were talking for that long.
No, it wasn't you. I loved having you guys on, and I'm still tripping out that you were like in neuroscience.
Yes,
Oh,
I
yeah.
learned that from your podcast, Evelyn.
That's-
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was
Yes.
great.
We
I
all
was
have
like,
our
how-
skeletons
what?
in our closet.
My God.
Yeah. You gotta go check out that podcast on Reppin. That's a great episode with
Thank
Diane
you.
Kwan and Eugene interviewing. All right. Well, thank you guys for this rich discussion. Really appreciate your
Slightly
insight.
unhinged.
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun. For everybody watching and listening, the Rose documentary, when this is airing, this podcast episode's airing, it's still in theaters in some regions across the world. So be sure to check your local listings to see if it is still playing in your area. If you have gone to see the film, you need to leave it a review. Go on Rotten Tomatoes, go on Letterboxd, go on IMDb. All of those reviews just helps get more reach for the film, because Eugene, what we're hoping for next is streaming distribution.
That's what
We
we're
would
hoping
love
for
that.
too. But can I
Yes.
just say thank you to everyone
Please.
also who has left a review, because we just finally reached that threshold to get the popcorn meter thing on Rotten Tomatoes. And so we're technically certified fresh, I think. So thank you to everyone who did leave a review, and
Congratulations.
please keep on sharing those reviews and coming through. Thank you so much, everyone.
Yeah.
And thank you to you two as well, Anne and Kelly. Seriously, it's been like, you've been such an integral part of our journey in so many ways. So I just want to thank you all, like, so much, like, on behalf of the whole team. Like, truly
a
couldn't be
pleasure.
here without you all.
Yeah,
It's
it's
an
been a
absolute
pleasure.
pleasure.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for supporting us and allowing us to be part of that journey.
As we come to the end of the actual show, what we would like to do is just have each person just say what their Instagram handle is and where we can follow you and take part in your wonderful creative endeavors.
Earlier, we are a multi-stand community. We have transferred our name. We are considered crazed because we are, that is our name. That's what we go based off of. But our handle is at the real SKZNation. So that's where you'll find us. We're on Facebook, Instagram, all of that. And again, it's such a pleasure, and I appreciate, the opportunity for being on here. And I'm so grateful that I got to actually meet all of you guys here today. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Mine it's easy. We go as one. And the other one, to support the Greek one, is the rose crisp. Even easier. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm the puppy of the... Thank you so much. It was really great talking about the documentary with people who actually paid attention to it, people who created, people who know a lot about it. And thank you to both girls for keeping us updated all those long months. We waited for news for the documentary.
Evelyn, did you come on? You have got to Reppin, because it is a fantastic podcast, so we need to know all about it.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you for having me, and thank you for your time. Eugene, thank you for being a storyteller and a champion for all of these incredible perspectives that we really do need. My podcast is called Reppin, which is short for representation. It's available on all podcast platforms. My Instagram handle is Reppin_podcast. The YouTube handle is at Reppin Podcast. One word. That's it. So check it out. Let me know. I'd love to hear from you guys and get your feedback.
We are at the Rose Doc on Instagram, therosedoc.com on the conventional website, internet. And yeah, I'm at another Eugene Yi. If you look that up on Instagram, that's where I'll show up. And I just, want to thank you all again for making the space for us to have this really wonderful conversation. Ashley and Elpida, thank you so much for your passion. Like truly, like you all are obviously representing like so much of the fandom community here, but we truly wouldn't be here without you all. And Evelien, thank you for kicking off much of our press journey with our like from Tribeca. So it was such a treat to see both James and Janet kind of at the end of this theatrical stretch, to sort of bring us back to you as well. So thank you so much for your passion and what you do for our community as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we will have all of their socials and handles in this episode description. So please give everybody a follow and give a listen. Thank you so much. All right, everybody. Please rate our podcast. Leave us comments about this episode. We love to hear your feedback. Follow us, KROCcast, on social media if you don't already. YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and X. We are at KROK_cast all across the board.
Click here to subscribe.
Send us an email. That's krock.cast@gmail.com. And check out our website, www.krockcast.com. See you in the next episode. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hi, this is Tom Ziva. You're watching and listening to KROCcast. Check out their podcast and KROC recommends for my music and other great independent artists.